Hello, I'm Dick Foth, and I'd like to welcome you to Known, stories to make sense of it all. And these stories are what I call walking books, real-life people from different places, different ages, different cultures, and I want to have some conversations with them across disciplines and generations and cultures in order to encourage a kind of knowing, fresh lenses through which to see the world. One of those lenses will be Scripture, or more specifically, Jesus of Nazareth, whose life, I believe, changed the course of the history of the world. So, thanks for listening in. Great to have you with us. So today is the second part of a two-part conversation with Justin and Mackenzie Matthews. These are friends of mine who work with young people. They love each other and they love young people. Middle schoolers up through young adults are sort of their bailiwick, whatever that means. I love that word, but whatever that means, that's where they live and spend their hours and their days. And recently we had the chance to deal with probably the most significant central issue in human dynamics, certainly in the last decade, as it relates to young people. Here we go. The question for the day is, when I say social media, what do you think of?
The first word that comes to my mind is fascinating.
Okay.
Followed by inspiring and dangerous.
Okay. Do you have any words to add to that, Justin?
I think that covered everything. I think of social media as from a middle school or high school perspective. I would say it is connection as middle school and high school kids see as connection.
Okay. All right. So in 2007, I think this date is right, in 2007, the iPhone, the smartphone, was introduced, and it has changed the world, literally changed the world. Mm-hmm. So talk to us, to me and to our listeners, about what you see as the things that are fascinating, inspiring, mm-hmm. and dangerous. Just jump into that, and we'll just have a little conversation here.
Totally. Well, I would say, I have and love all the social medias myself. So I enjoy them all. I think they're really fun. I connect with people near. I connect with people far. They're fun for me. And I think...
So all the social media...
I know,
well, let me see if I know them all, or some of them. Okay? I know... I'm older, so I know Facebook, obviously.
Obviously.
Twitter. Snapchat.
Yes.
Instagram.
Yes.
Wasn't there something called Vine?
Yeah, but
that
I
don't think.
I think Vine's gone now.
It was a touch and go, so that didn't count. But there will be others coming along.
Totally.
Okay, so that's all. Go ahead.
Yes, I don't have Vine, but I have all of the other ones.
Yes.
And I enjoy them and use them. I see a lot, especially young people, high school, college, even young adults, peers, and the way they use social media. I think that's always really, really interesting. Within each of the social medias, there's some things when you think about what is dangerous about them. Mm-hmm. The amount of just the numbers that are associated to certain things, like how many followers you have or how many people are affirming or liking the things that you're doing. There's a thing on Snapchat called a snap streak, where if I send you a photo and you send a photo back to me in a day, we get a number. And however many days we do that in a row, it adds to our numbers of saying how long our snap streak is. So recently, I was spending time with this friend of mine that's a high school student, and she was showing me her Snapchat, or she had her Snapchat open or something, and I was looking at her homepage, and she had a snap streak that had like 570-something days on this snap streak. And I was like, get out of town. Or I was so curious about that and asking her about that. And I was like, is this real? And she's like, oh, she gave her login when she went to summer camp. She was out of service range, and she gave someone else her login so that they could log in and send something for her just to maintain that number. So the idea of that number being such a big deal.
Okay, so it sounds to me that what some people call connection, other people would see as competition. Mm-hmm. And when we chatted before, you said something about comparison, mm-hmm. that social media perhaps is less about connection behind the scenes than it is about comparison. And I think the line that was said was, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
So, Justin, you work with what age group?
I work with middle school, high school, and college.
Okay, so let's just look at middle school.
Okay.
What would the youngest middle schooler be? 10 years old?
11. I think it's like 11 to 14-ish.
And they're on social media.
Oh, yeah.
So talk to me give me a couple of anecdotes about how you have seen social media work with your age group.
Yeah, and so I think of Instagram. That's the social media I have. I don't have Snapchat, and I look at Twitter for almost my news to kind of get the news. And Instagram, you can kind of get that with Instagram, the news, but for the most part, it is
by news you mean like world news?
Yeah, world news,
Okay.
sports news.
Okay. But Instagram is your telephone.
Yeah,
if you will,
more or less
of this age.
Yeah, and I remember a student, and when Mackenzie and I were living in California, I remember a student would go onto her Instagram and she would follow like thousands and thousands of people just so they would follow her back. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, she would go through and then unfollow all these people. And I remember talking to her about this and being like, how long does this take? And she's like, well, the last time I did it, it took 4 hours to go through her friend group just to unfollow people. So it made it look like she had more followers than people she's following. And so that is very true even here in Colorado with middle school students. Middle school students, they're very, very insecure, and they want to have this number associated with them, and it's a very big comparison thing. Every single student wants to, first off, have more followers than people they follow. So they want that number to be bigger. And I remember someone talking about a ratio, and they call it like your follow ratio. And I just think of that, and I think of the amount of hours and time put into this for something that, for I would assume a parent, just seems so silly, but for a middle school kid, I would almost say that it's not just silly, or it's more than just silly. It's
their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the heart of this discussion, we find comparison, and comparison has a twin called competition. Nothing wrong with comparison and nothing wrong with competition. The exception being how often, how long, how intense, to what end? Why are we doing it? And things that are constant, if you have constant comparison and constant competition, and there's no other metric by which to evaluate things, it can become very challenging. It sounds like dis-ease. Not disease, but dis-ease.
Yeah.
That it is a way of establishing my identity every day, every hour. I'm working on who I am, and I get that from you. You, my network.
Right.
So if you we talk about cyberbullying, but there is a sense in which, especially for younger folks, it sounds like it could be cyber intimidating or cyber jailing because I freeze you out, if you will. Am I overstating that?
I don't think so. I think today students are always comparing themselves, no matter what it is they're doing, whether it's sports.
Which is human nature.
Right, which is sports. It could be grades. It could be who you're dating, who you're not dating, all that stuff. They're always comparing each other, and now it's even more dangerous because they have a number that associates with how they compare to someone else.
So I don't only get a grade in my math class.
Right.
I get a grade in my social class.
Right.
Totally. And anything that they post they're waiting for that affirmation. So the second that you post something, you're looking at how many likes it's gotten. People will refresh it over and over and over again so that they can see how many numbers they're getting, how liked that thing is. So there's almost like anxiety filled with that. I knew a high school girl who said, oh, if I don't have 50 likes on a picture, I delete it. It's embarrassing. You know, there's that response that's like, oh, if I'm not getting that affirmation of, I try to put something, and they spend a lot of time in, I mean, I would say some high school kids, not all high school kids or young people in general, spend a lot of time thinking about what they're putting on their Instagram specifically. So well taken photos, they're thinking of captions, they're spending a lot of time thinking about or curating what they're choosing to put out there.
So this is the 2000 or the 21st century version of putting my best foot forward.
Yes.
That phrase comes from those old colonial things where you had silver buckles on your shoes, and you see these pictures of these guys standing with one foot in front of the other, and it was literally putting your best foot forward. That's the beautiful thing that catches the attention. This is that. But if I'm a soccer player, let's say, it isn't just that now I'm comparing myself to the other soccer players in my class or in my school or in my county or in my league. I'm comparing myself to a kid in Mumbai or in Edinburgh. That seems to me that's overwhelming for me, and I'm an old dude. And for somebody just getting their identity, seems to me that is so counterproductive in the long haul that it's just debilitating to a person, if you will.
Totally.
So on the one hand, it's fascinating and inspirational because you can get cute videos that are or inspiring talks, all of that. But it's it isn't that I just go on the internet and get the inspiring talks or get those passed around. It's that when I'm communicating with you at some level, you're evaluating me. Is that right? Or to what degree is that correct, my statement?
I mean, I think when it's young people looking at young people,
yes,
there is a bit of evaluating or comparing, but I feel like sometimes that lens is just more inward, thinking of how they're not those things. Not necessarily maybe evaluating, but I think sometimes it's like cyberbullying. Sometimes that is like very much evaluating or judging the people that they look at. But if someone is perceived to be a professional or someone is perceived to be as impressive, I feel like it's like a different category.
Okay, so you guys are investing your whole lives with young people, from middle school through young adulthood, okay? Could you do what you do in terms of trying to have positive influence, encourage the following of this Jesus of Nazareth person? Could you do what you do today without social media?
I believe so. I almost never post anything on social media. I think the biggest thing about social media, the reason I have it, is I try to stay relevant to middle school students. I'm no longer a middle school student, so I kind of don't really know what's going on. And I think social media kind of keeps me in that loop a little bit longer. But to say that could I do this without social media, I say absolutely.
And how would you do that without social media?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to communicate. There's a lot of ways to be in each other's lives. Whenever on Thursday nights, I meet with middle school kids, and we normally go to what we call man night, and we do man things on man night, and normally it's like eating wings and stuff like that, and not using napkins.
That's certainly a man thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we do that, and then I always say that whenever we get there, I don't think anybody's really ever on their phone. I would say for the most part, just because they know that in our small group that we have on Wednesday nights that you're not allowed to be on your phone.
So that's a rule on Wednesday nights?
Yeah. Okay. You're not allowed to be on your phone.
Okay.
And I think they've realized that being without your phone or without social media while you're all together is fine. Like even when I took guys to camp, I've taken my small group to camp 3 times for 3 years, and every year I collect their cell phones when we get to camp because I don't want them to be on their cell phone the whole time.
Sure. You want them to experience whatever.
Right, and I remember the first year it was a battle. Every kid's like, "Why can't I have my phone?" and all this stuff, and I kept telling them, I said, "Hey, you just got to trust me. I promise it's better. I promise it's better. Just trust me." And then I remember the next year, kids just kind of gave their phones willingly. Here it is. Here's my phone. Don't need it for the week. And then in 8th grade, I remember there was about 4 or 5 new students like, "We have to give our phones up." And I remember a student looking at him and going, "Hey, it's way better without your phone." And
So the peer deal kicks in.
yeah, and so I really believe that our time, that at least the time that I get to spend with middle school students, I believe that they truly believe that it's better without their phone.
Sure.
Because we get to hang out with one another.
Sure.
And so I do believe that I could do what I do without social media. I think sometimes it does make it a little easier.
Sure.
And I also think it helps me promote what we're doing
Yeah.
much better.
So it's an informational tool.
Absolutely.
To get the word. How about you, McKinnon?
Oh, and yeah, for
You can
getting
do it.
the word out.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
that's
it's
good.
huge.
Yeah.
I use it for. I mean, I hardly ever print anything anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Well, if you
everything
wanted
is
to
on
have a
social
flash
media.
mob and sing a song.
Yeah, I do a lot of, trying to do advertising or building new relationships.
Right.
That's where it's a really effective way to do that.
Okay.
I think with relationships that we already have, it's the ability to know things that are happening in their lives. Like I can see something and ask them about it later. Like I remember, especially with some high school kids, there was something where a high school kid had tweeted something about like some very aggressive tweet where she looked really angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like
Yeah.
Twitter told me that you said this. And it was, it's able to see the students in different elements of their lives and being able to ask them and connect with them about things going on with them. I think it's possible to do it outside of the realm of social media, but I agree that it makes it easier because you can just know the things that they're choosing to put out there and you can ask them about that, or you can say, "This is such a big part of your life. I can be curious about it."
So you're doing the evaluating.
Kind of.
Because if it's a feeling I have, but it isn't just that I'm saying it to you. I'm saying it to 38 other people, and learning that 38 other people have 38 different opinions is something that comes with maturity, isn't it? And I'm still learning that, and it's been a while. I heard somebody say, "I don't have a relationship with people anymore. I have relationships with my devices." There's something about the idea of addiction connected with it. I mean, I think there are even camps now for people who feel addicted to their devices, if you will. Are you aware of those camps, or have you heard about that?
I have heard about them. I'm not
Yeah.
aware of any, or I don't know of anyone who's been there, but I have heard of them.
Because I was reading the other day about that. So, okay, here's this platform for communication. I mean, back, almost 100 years ago now, the telephone came into existence, and that became a new thing. It changed the culture. The automobile 100 years ago came into existence. It changed the culture. The credit card came into existence. It changed the birth control pill in the 60s, changed the culture. And forever it will be changed. It cannot go back. So this is true of the telephone made personal, because it's not just a telephone. It is, in fact, this storage center for my life. I'm a parent, let's say, of a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old, and I want to help the student know how to handle this arena and not have the arena handle me. Okay, so thoughts. Or any other thoughts you have. You can go any way you want with this.
I'm a very firm believer in accountability. I believe that what you post online and what you look at on your phone and all that stuff, you need to be accountable for. I know parents that say that their student isn't allowed to have their phone past 9 o'clock. Their phone goes in the bedroom with mom and dad, and they're allowed to look at anything they want to look at. And I know all sorts of kind of things like that. And
You mean the parents are able to look at their phone?
yeah, the parents are able to look at their son or their daughter's phone.
That's an understanding.
Yeah, and it's understanding. And it's one of those things that, like, I know a friend of mine, Bob, with his daughter, he was saying that I paid for this phone, so I'm letting you know right right now that I'm allowed to look at anything on your phone. So if you want a phone, this is the kind of the contract we're in. And at first it was pretty bad, but now Riley, Bob's daughter, just gives it to Bob willingly. Here you go. Absolutely.
Sure.
I get it. And so I always say that parents should always have some rules for their phone. I mean, today, we have the world at our fingertips always in our pocket and
in our heads.
Yeah, and I just feel like that could be super dangerous. And to be honest with you, you can access anything on Instagram, on
Sure.
Twitter,
Oh, yeah.
on Facebook. You can see anything you want, basically. And so I really believe that parents should be involved and invested in that. And I even had a parent, this was years ago, that said, well, hey, can you check in on my son's Instagram every couple weeks and let me know what's going on? And I remember saying, no, but I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you how to set up an account. And so I just think that the more invested you are, the better. I really believe that it could be really dangerous without any accountability.
So a parent communicating with a child, vice versa, sets the stage for whatever other communications the child has or the young person has with folks beyond that circle. So step one is lets us have communication,
Right.
understand, and this is true in a home. When I was growing up, we didn't have that. We still had to have, okay, these are the guidelines, so this is just guidelines for a different arena,
Right.
It's just that arena is very active, and it's pinging me. It's coming after me because I'm a dollar. This is all about money for the people who are setting things up. That's not being cynical. At the end of the day, any program, any kind of thing that's going on, somebody's making money off that.
Right.
That's how it is. That's the macro picture. The micro picture is how do I help my child, my young adult, learn to manage life that comes in on that little screen or on that. Is that fair to say that?
Totally.
So, any other thoughts?
Yeah. Whenever I talk to parents about this, I always encourage them to be curious and try to come to their students with curiosity, saying, hey, tell me about this. Or things that you hear, like asking about the new Snapchat update. And be like, I heard that you can see where people are on a map. I would love for you to show me that. Is that something you see? Or asking them, hey, what do you think are the problems with this? Where do you see this in your friends? I think it's always a win if you can get your kids talking about those types of things or having conversations about how it's dangerous, trying to shift their perspective and be curious in a way that is a conversation that is safe and not a conversation that is threatening. Because I know a lot of parents that are coming at this being like, nope, you're not allowed, it's over.
Sure.
It's very it's rule-based, which it has to be to a degree. But if you can also create some trust and some safety to have conversations about issues with it, issues they see in their peers, questions, just trying to be curious, and trying to monitor and at least know and understand the social media that their kids are on.
So parents creating conversations that are about life, part of which has to do with social media, rather than letting social media create the conversation in which parents may or may not be involved. Coming back to that whole piece, we have single moms, single dads listening to this, and it's a challenge as a single parent. It's just a challenge, let alone social media. That's a whole other arena. But to consider the time together at one's house, an entire dinner table conversation. Let's say dinner table is a metaphor for that, where you can put commas in the conversation. You don't have to fix it all tonight. You don't have to solve it all or understand it all. It seems to me that to create a conversation as a family, as parents and young people, to create a conversation that includes something about social media so that you don't have to have that big conversation all the time. It doesn't always become the flashpoint. Seems to me that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime we can have a conversation about something and not just wait till they're in trouble is always best. I always say that, like, I get emails from parents from everywhere between social media. I don't like what they're posting on social media too. I don't like the music they're listening to.
Sure.
And my advice is to always make it a conversation and not so much of just you got caught doing this, now you're in trouble, and try to get out ahead of that and make it a conversation before it gets there.
We're going to give you, Mackenzie, the closing word here.
Ooh.
And for those of you listening, our nickname for Mackenzie is Mac. She is known as Mac during the around here.
Yeah, I would just wanting to look at social media and seeing the positives of social media. I think it's really easy to be very scared. I teach a class about social media to some of our parents here at our church, and every time parents get so scared about all the bad things that can be associated with social media. But I think there is a lot of good things that are in all the social medias as well, in finding where students are creative, where young people are creative, trying to look for the positive things and ask about the positive things, and not always living in fear about all the things that, are negative and are hard and are, dangerous about social media. So that's what I would say.
So when I read the story of Jesus, I'm reading the story of what we would call today a millennial. And he went to the places where people gathered. He went to the dinner table. He went to the wells. That's where he went. What do you think? You think he'd be on Twitter?
I'd like to think he would be on Twitter.
According to Twitter, he already is. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
And with that, my dear friends, we sign off.
Thanks
a million, guys, for being with
thanks,
us.
Dick.
Appreciate it so much.